Hello 8th grade. It is Monday, April 20th, 2020, which means Monday is Fahrenheit 451, the next 10 pages of part 2. We're also going to be going over last Friday's homework, and we're going to be going over this week's standard and our journal. Let's get started. This week you're going to be developing ideas through comparing what you've read. This is Reading Informational Text Standard 8.3. So what does developing an idea through comparison mean? Well, it means as you read something, as you're presented with information and conflicting information, your job is to compare the things you've read, make connections, and then come up with an informed decision. Today you're going to be reading about what a strong economy looks like, what a weak economy looks like, and then you're going to make some comparisons and you're going to be asked some questions at the end. So your questions are, how does putting your money into a bank compare to that putting your money into a stock, a bond, and a security? So based on what you've read, that's a lot of stuff there. Go back and use that text evidence to help you take those three things and figure it out. Compare what it's like to invest money in the stock market at the beginning of the 20th century to what it's like to invest money in the stock market now. What's the differences you've read about? Is it easier? Is it more difficult? You tell me based on what you've read. Cite your text evidence. Make a comparison. Okay? Third question. What does the author draw? Why does the author draw the comparison between the old and the new worlds of investing? So the author says, here's how things were in the early 1900s, and here's how things are now. Comparing the two, make a connection. What does the author draw upon? Okay? If you have any questions, come into the Google chat. Remember, yours is 2:30 to 3. If you don't understand something, it's okay. Remember, making comparisons between texts, you have to read a lot. You got to go back and forth to the document. Kind of make a connection between what you know, what the author knows. Remember, the 3 reasons an author writes something is to persuade, inform, or entertain. This author is informing you, okay? You can do this. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's go over last week's homework, Friday. Okay. Why is Montag on the train, and what does he remember about when he was a child? He's on the train to go visit a retired college professor by the name of Faber, Mr. Faber. And what is he remembering about when he was a child? He's remembering about lilies on a field. It's like a jingle that gets stuck in his head. And yeah, I won't go anything further than that. Why is he trying to remember the Bible? Well, as we saw, Montag has the last copy of the Bible on the whole planet. I'm going to say that again. He has the last remaining copy of the Bible on the whole planet. He's memorizing it because he remembered what his boss, Captain Beatty, told him. Remember in beginning of part 2, end of part 1, Beatty says, Montag, all firemen want to read books. It's fine if you take a couple, but remember, within 24 to 48 hours, if you don't burn it yourself, we'll come get you and we'll burn it and you'll be arrested. So he's trying to memorize it because he knows he's going to have to take the book back sooner or later. What is causing Montag to have a difficult time reading the Bible? He doesn't understand. Now remember, guys, books up to this point are illegal. They're like drugs, illegal drugs, and he's never read anything like this. This is philosophical stuff. It's deep. It's confusing. So he has no idea what he's reading. He just doesn't. He's never had the experience. How does Montag begin to behave? What is the reaction of the other writers? So as he's trying to make sense of the Bible, things start coming into Montag's head. Nonsense jingles from the television that he's watched, like break me off a piece of that Kit Kat, but like little jingles like that. Well, that's what they're bombarded with in Montag's world constantly, like on those 4 television sets everyone has in their houses. It's just constant advertisements and capitalism and getting people to buy stuff. There's very little substance. So every time Montag tries to memorize a part of a book, those little jingles and things come in and it makes him forget. And he starts repeating things over and over again on the bus to Faber's, and people on the bus look at him like he's crazy. They think he's something's wrong with him, mentally disabled. Whom does he visit? Mr. Faber. How is the professor described? Professor Faber is best described as, I want to read this specifically, old man that is both nervous and scared. According to Mr. Faber, what does Jesus do on the parlor walls? Jesus has now been made a part of the reality shows that they all watch on TV. And he's been made a part of the family or the group of people that are on the show. And you probably wouldn't recognize him. He's not the Jesus that we all know from the artwork. The skinny, Aramaic, long-haired, bearded man. He looks very modern, wearing a suit, and they've sort of rebranded him to fit on their reality shows. According to Faber, why is he a coward? He tells Montag, I am a coward, because he says, when they tore down the college and they threw me out, I sat there and I watched them go into our college and pull out all the books and burn them. I didn't stand up for anything. I didn't try and step in and grab anything. I just sat there and mumbled to myself like a coward. What are the three qualities Faber says are needed in any society? He says, for a society to be worth anything, they need texture, they need leisure, and the action that you do with those two. Leisure and texture. Texture is depth. Depth of thought, depth from thinking, from reading, philosophizing. And then your leisure time. It's like business and pleasure. Take those two things and you mix them and you try and have a balance. What idea does Montag have? He wants to take the books and he wants to plant them in all the firemen's houses and create chaos. He wants to bring down the society. He doesn't like burning books. What is Faber's reaction to this? Faber laughs he doesn't think that Montag's foolish, he just can't believe it. He thinks it's impossible. And what idea does Faber suggest to Montag about printing extra copies of books? He says he knows a guy that can print the copies. But he kind of hints that that's not the best way to do it. Because Montag suggests, well, if I have to burn this last copy of the Bible, is there any way we can make copies of it? Okay, so let's get started with today's reading. I'll read a little bit for you and with you and explain, and then I'm going to let you guys do the rest. We are in the ebook, page 87, and I want you going all the way to 97, okay? We aren't going to be in part 3 just yet. We got till page 107 to get us to part 3, Burning Bright. It looks like a seashell radio, and something more. It listens. If you put it in your ear, Montag, I can sit comfortably home, warming my frightened bones, and hear and analyze the fireman's world, find its weaknesses without danger. I'm the queen bee, safe in the hive. You will be the drone, the traveling ear, and eventually I could put out ears into all parts of the city with various men, listening and evaluating. If the drones die, I'm still safe at home, tending to my fright with a maximum of comfort and a minimum of chance. Do you see how safe I play it? How contemptible I am? Montag placed the green bullet in his ear. The old man inserted a similar object in his own ear, and then moved his lips. Montag, the voice was in Montag's head. I hear you. The old man laughed. You're coming over fine, too. And then Mr. Faber whispered, but the voice in Montag's head was completely clear. Go to the firehouse when it's time. I'll be with you. Now, listen to Captain Beatty together. Okay? He could be one of us. God knows. I'll give you things to say, Montag. We'll give him a good show. Do you hate me for this electronic cowardice of mine, Montag? Here I am sending you out into the night while I stay behind the lines with my damn ears listening for you to get your head possibly chopped off. Now, Mr. Faber, we all do what we have to do, said Montag. He put the Bible in the old man's hands. Here. I'll chance turning in a substitute tomorrow. I'll see the unemployed printer. Yes. That much I can do for you, Montag. All right. Good night, Mr. Professor. Good night, Montag. I'll be with you the rest of the night. A vinegar gnat, tickling your ear when you need me. But good night, and good luck, Montag. The door opened and closed. Montag was back in the dark street, looking at the world. You could feel the world getting ready in the sky that night. The way the clouds were moving aside and came back, and the way the stars were looking. 1,000,000 of them swimming between the clouds. Like the enemy discs, and the feeling that the sky might fall on the city and turn into chalk dust and the moon go up in a red fire. That was how the night felt. Montag walked from the subway with the money in his pocket. He had visited the bank, which was open all night, every night, with robot tellers in attendance. And he was listening to the seashell radio in one ear. We have mobilized 1,000,000 men. Quick victory is ours if the war comes. Music flooded over the voice quickly, and it was gone. 10,000,000 men mobilized. Faber's voice whispered in his other ear. But say 1,000,000, it's happier. Faber. Yes? I'm not thinking. I'm just doing like I'm told, like always. You said to get the money. I got it. I didn't really think of it myself, but when do I start working things out on my own? Montag, you started already by saying what you just said. You're going to have to take me on faith on this. Okay. I took the others on faith. Yeah, you did. And look where you're headed. You're going to have to travel blind for a while, okay? Here's my arm to hold on to. I don't want to change sides and just be told what to do, Faber. There's no reason to change if I do that. You're wise already, Montag. Montag felt his feet moving on the sidewalk of his house. Keep talking to me, Faber. Would you like me to read to you, Montag? I'll read so you can remember. I go to bed only 5 hours a night. There's nothing to do, so if you'd like, I could read you to sleep at nights. They say that you retain knowledge even when you're sleeping, if someone whispers it in your ear. Yes, Faber. Here. Far away comes across town, in the night, the faintest whisper of a turned page. This is from the book of Job. The moon rose in the sky as Montag walked, his lips moving, just a trifle. He was eating a light supper at 9 in the evening when the front door cried out in the hall, and Mildred ran from the parlor like a native fleeing from an eruption of Vesuvius. Mrs. Phelps and Mrs. Bowles came through the front door and vanished into the volcano's mouth, with martinis in their hands. Montag stopped eating. They were like a monstrous crystal chandelier tinkling in 1,000 chimes. He saw their Cheshire cat smiles burning through the walls of the house, and now they were screaming at each other above the din. Montag just found himself in the parlor door with his food still in his mouth. Doesn't everybody look nice? So nice. You look fine too, Millie. Oh, fine. Everyone looks swell. Swell. Montag just stood watching them. Patience, Montag, whispered Mr. Faber. I shouldn't be here, whispered Montag to himself. I should be on my way back to you with the money. Tomorrow will be enough time. Careful, Montag. Isn't this show wonderful? Cried Mildred. So wonderful. On one wall, a woman smiled and drank orange juice simultaneously. How does she do both at once? Thought Montag insanely. In the other walls, an X-ray of the same woman revealed the contracting journey of the refreshing beverage on its way to her delighted stomach. Abruptly, the room took off on a rocket ship in the clouds. It plunged into a lime green sea where blue fish and red fish and yellow fish. A minute later, 3 white cartoon clowns chopped off each other's limbs to the accompaniment of immense incoming tides of laughter. 2 minutes more, and the room whipped out of the town, the jet cars wildly circling area, bashing and backing up against one again. Montag saw a number of bodies then fly into the air. Oh, Millie, did you see that? I saw it! Montag reached inside the parlor wall and pulled the main switch. The images all drained away, as if the water had been let from a gigantic crystal bowl of hysterical fish. The 3 women turned slowly and looked with unconcealed irritation, and then dislike at Montag. When do you suppose the war will start? He asked the ladies. I notice your husbands aren't here tonight. Oh, they come and go, said Mrs. Phelps. In and out again, fingering. The army called Pete yesterday. He'll be back next week. The army said so. Quick war, 48 hours, they said, and everyone will be home. At least that's what the army said. Quick war, Pete was called yesterday, and they said he'd be back next week. Quick. The 3 women fidgeted and looked nervously at the empty, mud-colored walls. I'm not worried, said Mrs. Phelps. I'll let Pete do all the worrying. I'll let old Pete do all the worrying, not me. I'm not worried. It's always someone else's husband that dies, isn't it, they say. I've heard that too. I've never known any dead man killed in a war. Killed jumping off buildings, yes, like Gloria's husband last week. But from wars, no. Not from wars, said Mrs. Phelps. Anyway, Pete and I always said no tears. Nothing like that. It's our 3rd marriage each. And we're independent. But independent, we always said. He said, if I get killed off, you just go right on ahead and don't you cry. But get married again and then don't even think about it. That reminds me, said Mildred. Did you see Clara Dove, 5-minute romance last night in your walls? Ugh, it was all about this woman who... Montag just said nothing. He just stood there, looking at the women's faces, as he had looked at the face of saints in a strange church he had entered when he was a child. The faces of those enameled creatures meant nothing to him, though he talked and stood in the church for a time, trying to be that of a religion, trying to know what religion was, trying to get enough of the raw incense and special dust of this place into his lungs and thus into his blood to feel touched and concerned by the meaning and the colorful men and women and the porcelain eyes and the bloody ruby lips. But there was nothing. It was just a stroll through another store, and his currency and strange unusable there, and his passion cold even when he was touched the wood and the plaster and the clay of the church. So it was now in his own parlor with these women twisting in their chairs under his gaze, lighting their cigarettes, blowing smoke, touching the sun-fired hair, and examining their blazing fingernails as if they had caught fire from his look. Their faces grew haunted with silence. They leaned forward, the sound of Montag swallowing his final bite of food. They listened to his feverish breathing. The 3 empty walls of the room were like now pale brows of sleeping giants, now empty of dreams. Montag felt that if you touched these 3 staring brows, you would feel a fine salt of sweat on your fingertips. The perspiration gathered with the silence and this subaudible trembling around you and in the women who were burning with tension. Any moment they might hiss a long, sputtering hiss and all explode. Montag moved his lips. Let's talk, ladies. The women jerked and stared. How are your children, Mrs. Phelps? You know I don't have any, Montag. No one in his right mind, the good Lord knows, would have children, said Mrs. Phelps, not quite sure she was angry with this man. I wouldn't say that, said Mrs. Bowles. I've got 2 children by cesarean section. No use going through all that agony for a little baby. The world must reproduce, The race must go on. Besides, they sometimes look just like you, and that's nice. 2 cesareans turn the trick. Yes, sir. Oh, my doctor said cesareans aren't necessary. You've got the hips for it. Everything else is normal. But I insisted. Cesareans are not. Children are ruinous. You're out of your mind, said Mrs. Phelps. Well, I pluck the children to school 9 days out of 10. I put up with them. They come home 3 days out of a month. It's not bad at all. You heave them in the parlor and turn the switch. It's like washing clothes. Stuff the laundry, slam the lid. Mrs. Bowles then tittered. They'd just as soon kick and kiss me. Thank God I can kick back. The women showed their tongues, laughing. Mildred sat a moment and then, seeing that Montag was still in the doorway, clapped her hands. Let's talk politics. To please Guy. Sounds fine with me, said Mrs. Bowles. I voted in the last election, same as everybody, and I laid it on the line for President Noble, and I think he's one of the nicest looking men that's ever become president. Oh, but the man they ran against him? He wasn't much, was he? Kind of a small and homely, and didn't shave too close or comb his hair very well. What possessed the outs to run him? You just go running a little short man like that against a tall man besides, he mumbled. Half the time I couldn't hear a word he said, and the words I did hear, I didn't even understand. Fat, too, and didn't dress nice to hide it. No wonder the landslide was for Winston Noble. Even their names helped. Compare Winston Noble to Hubert Hogue for 10 seconds, and you can almost figure out the results. Damn it, cried Montag. What do you know about Hogue and Noble? Why, they were right there in the parlor wall not 6 months ago. One was always picking his nose. It drive me wild. Well, Mr. Montag, said Mrs. Phelps, do you want us to vote for a man like that? Mildred beamed. You just run away from the door, okay, Guy? And don't you make us nervous. But Montag was gone and back in a moment with a book in his hand. Guy? Damn it all! Damn it all! Damn it! What have you got there? Is that a book? I thought that a special training these days was done by film. Mrs. Phillips blinked. Are you reading up on fireman's theory? Theory? Hell, said Montag. This is poetry. Montag, a whisper. Leave me alone. Montag felt himself turning in a great circling roar and buzz and hum. Montag, hold on now, don't. Did you hear them? Did you hear these monsters talking about monsters? Oh God, the way they jabber about people and their own children and themselves, the way they talk about their husbands and the way they talk about war. Damn it! I stand here and I can't believe it. I didn't say a single word about war. Any war, I'll have you know, Mr. Montag. As for your poetry, I hate it. Have you ever heard any? Montag. Faber's voice scraped away at him. You're going to ruin everything. Shut up, you fool. All these women were on their feet. Sit down. They sat. Well, I'm going home, quavered Mrs. Bowles. Montag, please, in the name of God, what are you up to? Pleaded Faber. Why don't you just read us one of those poems from your little book? Mrs. Phelps nodded. I think that'd be very interesting. All right, I'm going to stop there. Whew. Montag has had enough, and you kind of see why. The women's discussions are very surface level and vapid. They're not talking about anything of substance. They're gossiping. They're just going from one nonsense topic after the next, sort of picking it apart, but not really. They're talking, but they're not talking, if that makes any sense. And Montag's, he's gone down the rabbit hole, and he can't come out. He's seen too much. So Mr. Faber's trying to reason with him in his ear, don't start reading to them. You're going to, if they know you have a book, they're going to go tell the other firemen, and our whole plan will be ruined. Anyways, guys, let me know if you have any questions. Tomorrow's Google Meet is from 2:30 to 3. Do your questions on Google Docs and Google Classroom, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.